You're tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Here's your host with today's guest.
Welcome to another edition of Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Narcan, please get it. CVS, Walgreens, wherever you can get it, you need to get it. Put it in your purse, put it in your car. It saves lives. Overdoses, deaths are down, but overdoses are up. This saves lives. Please get it. My guest today is Roxanne Newman, and Roxanne has a story to tell in her arrangement to get into recovery and what she's doing now as a mom. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So let me start by saying I saw your posts on Facebook, and I said to myself, I need to get in touch with Roxanne because I know, reading in between the lines of your posts, that you would be a good guest.
Well, thank you.
So welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Tell us about Roxanne Newman and your journey.
Oh, wow. I guess if you look at it, I'm your typical kind of like trajectory of addiction, right? So I was born into a family who, one half of my family struggles with a lot of mental health and substance use issues. And then both of my parents were very young, and one parent was struggling with their own substance use disorder at the time. And came from a working class family, So I had a lot of struggles early on behaviorally, bounced around to a lot of places, went to group homes for some, externalizing behavior. I didn't really know how to manage my emotions very well. And so that kind of was the beginning of my life. And it wasn't actually until a little bit later on in my later teens that I found substances. And I always remember one of the first times I used any substance, just feeling like all the insecurities, all the anger, just everything just melted away instantly. And it was such a reinforcing feeling that I remember my thought after using the substance was, oh, I just got to feel like this all the time. This is the answer. And I think a lot of people don't understand that substance use is actually a solution to a problem. It's maladaptive, and it does a lot more damage long term, but in the short term, it's highly effective. If you have a drink at the end of the night, if you're stressed out, highly effective, removes your stress, right? So for people who, like myself, they're chronically stressed, coming from these really, abusive and just neglectful environments, this is a great solution to all of that. So I instantly fell in love with drugs and alcohol. And in the beginning, I had a lot of fun. Right, and but when I took that turn, when it was no longer fun, I am from the generation when OxyContin was readily available, when it was in a form that you could crush, and it became highly addictive, right? And I really didn't know what I was getting into when I got into it.
Not a lot of people do.
No, you really don't.
Right.
You really don't.
Right.
And so, once I was addicted to opiates, I was doing, cocaine and opiates. That was just my whole life. My whole life was, working and using drugs.
So you were functional, per se.
Somewhat. I worked in the nightlife.
Okay.
So my job afforded me the ability.
Okay.
So I was functional in a sense that where I was. Could I have worked a regular 9-to-5 job? Absolutely not. But, when you work in the nightlife, you don't have to worry about that. No one cares. Right? Because that's just what everyone's doing.
Right.
So I was really set up very nicely to be able to continue to use, right? So this was the early 2000s, and at the time, recovery was not what it is today, and there was a lot of stigma, and there still is stigma, but a lot of stigma. And I tried to get help a couple times, but I ran into some very not nice medical people, and I need to say that because, like, you know, this happens a lot. People will reach out and ask for help, and then they'll get someone who's just utterly mean and stigmatizing to them, right? And it makes you back away, right? And eventually I found myself after, you know, what would be, I would say, like 3 years of using, I finally found myself homeless on the streets of Providence, IV drug use, and was in and out of prison. And so I lived that way from about 2006 to 2012.
Then what happened?
Well, so, you know, the research suggests, right, that it takes about 2 to 4 real attempts in order, and what you have to classify what real is for yourself, you know, in order to initiate really and sustain recovery. And so I would say that's true for me. You know, I had a couple attempts in 2006 to 2012, whether it would be leaving prison to go into treatment or, you know, just putting myself into treatment on my own. But in 2012, I had spent a whole year on the streets, which is a lot. It's a lot for, I was 26 at the time, 27, and I was really, really beat down by the weather, beat down by the violence, beat down by just the whole, I mean, this is my whole life. My whole life is using at this point. There's no working, there's none of that. And being homeless is a lot. And so, especially for a woman. And one day, out of the clear blue, and I hold on to this moment so tightly. I just woke up, and I actually planned to use, and there wasn't any substances around me in the house I was at. So I got up and said, oh, I'll just, you know, go outside and go find some money or whatever, figure it out. I took like 3 steps down the sidewalk and just said, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired.
Really?
Yeah, and at the time, I had warrants. I had hepatitis C, and I found out later on I was in 2nd stage liver failure. I didn't have a license. I didn't have a car. My family's not from here. I'm not from here. I'm from northern Mass and southern New Hampshire. I had no clothes. I had the clothes that were on my back. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing to my name. And I just said, I just don't want to do this anymore. And, you know, so I began what would be, hopefully, my last really initiated and sustained attempt of recovery. And at the time, you know, we had Anchor Recovery Center had just started. So I found myself there. And they were really able to help me. I got into recovery housing. We had what was known as the ATR grant, Access to Recovery Grant. So that was huge. That helped me to get a little bit of recovery housing, you know, for free at the time. It was only a small amount. It wasn't like it is now. And, you know, I could get a bus pass. And, you know, I had to turn myself in. That was a big turning point for me, you know, early on. You know.
What do you mean by turn yourself
and
in?
Turn myself into Superior Court.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I had a warrant.
Okay.
So Magistrate Howard, I think she retired, but she was phenomenal. She really, you know, a lot of people push back on the legal system, and I get it, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes for some, and this is not a popular opinion, but I'm going to say it, sometimes for some people who are incapable of stopping on their own, they kind of need that intervention.
They need that push.
Yeah, and Magistrate Howard, she made sure that I had to go to her courtroom every Friday until I got into inpatient treatment. And I had to say what I did that week to deserve to stay free. And that was a lot, you know what I mean? Because it was like, okay, even if I didn't go on Friday, by that Monday I knew the warrant would be out and I'd be in. So she was really heavy-handed on me. And that was, saved my life. And when
And very much deserved.
Right, you know, it just, and so I was incapable of making sound decisions. My brain was just not there.
I'm gonna make a decision right now that we need to go to break so I can pay the bills. And we'll be right back after that. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, Kodak. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Roxanne Newman is in the house today, and she's talking about Roxanne Newman. And welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
You know, just to get what you were talking about earlier, I do have to give you a lot of credit. Listening to your story And when the folks that are watching find out what the end result is, they don't know it. I know it. It's really, really a telling story.
Thank you.
Telling. So, you're in and out of prison. You went in front of Judge Howard. She put the hammer down. Then what happened?
Well, you know, I just want to say that it takes a whole community, right, to help people.
Takes a whole village.
And I'm really lucky and blessed that I just managed to have some terrific human beings in my life during those very critical, crucial early years of recovery, and even now, right? Because it's not over. It's an everyday thing for the rest of my life.
Right.
But
one day at a time.
one day at a time. So, but I was, you know, doing my thing. I was working. I had finished inpatient. I was in a recovery house, and this magical man named Jim Gillen would go into the Anchor Recovery, and he would say, you know what, I'm going to need you. And to me, that was like, me? You're going to need me? I mean, my life was destroyed. Like, so, you know, he gave me like a purpose. And he said, you know, we're doing this thing, we called them recovery coaches at the time, and we're going to need people who are in recovery helping others. And so I'll never forget. He said he said he was doing the class, and it was so much money. And I said, well, I can't afford that. He goes, well, if you volunteer so many hours here, which I think he knew what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
He was keeping me out of
Smart
trouble.
guy.
Keeping me out of trouble. At the time, I was just like, okay, and I was, you know, I'm going to do my hours, and so I would go to work, which happened to be next door to Anchor, and then I'd come down and I would work. You know, I would do my hours of volunteering. And I ended up, you know, was in the second class of the Recovery Coach Academy, that was called at the time. And so I was part of this huge movement of recovery, and we were doing parades, and we were doing interviews, and we were like all over the TV, and we did you know, I was doing the rally for recovery, and because you can remember, I didn't have anyone down here other than people I had used with.
Yeah.
So I had this community of people who were in recovery long term, and were doing this huge movement, and I was engulfed in it. On top of, you know, being part of a 12-step fellowship, and it was just like, it was just a magical moment, and it was so beautiful, and that's how I got into the field. Then I went back to school because, you know, I love education. Even when I was younger, I'm like a fish in water in any type of academic setting. I can learn quickly. I just love it. I love to soak in knowledge. My grandmother used to call me a walking encyclopedia, just spitting out facts and everything, right? I drive my children crazy with it. And a lot of my friends too. So I went back to school, and I remember I was so scared, right? Because I was like, I haven't written an essay in forever, right? Like, can I do this? Did I hurt my brain so much that I won't be okay? And, you know, shout out to neuroplasticity, right? That our brains are able to heal themselves, you know? But I went back to school, I went to CCRI. I remember I had to take a high school English course because I couldn't write an essay. I didn't know how to write one anymore. And it just went from there. I got my associates in psychology, and then I did the JAA, which was, you know, a transition from CCRI to RIC.
Yep.
Again, found amazing academic scholars there who, you know, were like, well, what do you want to do with this? And it was like, I fell in love with research. I really love researching. And what do you know? There's recovery science, there's recovery research. Right. So I got my double bachelor's in chemical dependency and then psychology. Wow. And then I moved on from my master's of psychology, and now it will be hopeful, you know, I will be okay. I'm pretty sure I'll get it, but have my PhD in psychology at the end at the beginning of this year.
Good for you. So that's why my title of my show is Hope and Recovery.
Right.
Because if there wasn't hope, you wouldn't be sitting here.
No.
You wouldn't be sitting here, and neither would any of the folks prior to you that come on my show that have went into dark places and worked themselves out of it. Because when I talk to people that, like at the recovery rally, and you talk to people, there's no hope for me. No, there is hope.
Right.
You got to concentrate. You got to get ready to do something for yourself. Get away from the friends that you have. Get new friends.
Right.
Get into a place where you can get educated, you can get a job, you can become a productive citizen again. And you are the total statue of that.
Well, thank you. You know, we have to get around people. People love to see a success story. They
Right.
it fills them full of hope. And so, you know, when you start working on yourself, when you start, you know, in your recovery journey, and I know it seems like it's just like this. I mean, remember, I had to do hepatitis C treatment. I had legal ramifications I had to face, and I had to, you know, satisfy to the judge. Howard removed all my fines at the end. You know, I had like $2,000 worth of fines, and she was like, "You've done so well, Roxanne. Like, I'm just going to remove them." You know, like she wanted to help me, and
Right.
so. It was all these things. I didn't have a license. I had to go and get a license again. Like even my student loans, before I could go back to school, they were in default from when I had first gone when I was a teenager, when I was 19. And I had to pay for that. Like it's just, I mean, it's not fast, but anything worth having is
worth doing.
Yeah. So, you know, and you need a community. You need a community of really good people around you.
So you're working on your PhD, and hopefully you'll get that next year,
In the beginning of next year, yeah.
beginning of next year. So what are you doing now?
So I work at a treatment facility as a licensed chemical dependency professional. I also have my own private practice. Together We Heal Counseling, so I can take people one-on-one. I have my 2 daughters, so I'm a mom. You
That's
know,
good.
yeah. And I'm just living every day.
So let's talk about the people that you see. So little Susie calls Roxanne and say, you know, I need help. How do you start the conversation with someone that is looking for your expertise in chemical dependency? How do you start that conversation?
Well, with any really therapeutic setting, the most important thing is trust. Now, when we're dealing with people who have substance use struggles, you're dealing with people who, you know, like myself, trust has been broken somewhere, and probably many times. And so when I first start working with someone, I'm not looking to fix them.
Right.
I want to get to know them. I want to earn their trust. I want them to know that they can come to me with anything. And that doesn't happen in 1 hour session.
Right.
That takes time.
Right.
You know, I will obviously offer, you know, what I know about, you know, getting involved in having a recovery pathway and those things. But the most important thing for me is building trust with my clients.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about trust when we come back, because I got to go to break. A lot of people have told me that, but I want to hear it from you, the trust factor. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back with Roxanne after these messages.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, Kodak. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Roxanne Newman is in the house, and this young lady has gone from here to here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing now to help others. A mom, 2 little girls. Did you ever think that you would become a mom with 2 little girls?
No, I did not. I didn't think any of this was ever going to happen.
You know, I'm impressed by the way that you gravitated to the education, gravitated to helping others, gravitated to hope. As I said earlier, there's not a lot of people that have hope when they're in the situation that you're in. And I can almost guarantee you had no hope.
Oh, none. None at
You
all.
know? So I have to give you kudos for what you did, what you're doing, and
Thank
what
you.
you're going to do. Because they should put you in a thing, people on the move. You know?
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, Jim Gillen was a friend. You know, God rest his soul. He knew he could pick you out.
Yeah.
He said it to me. He said it to you. But I want to thank you for joining me today. I wish you all the best. When you become a doctor, we'll have you come back on and we'll talk about that, and we'll move forward from there. So again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, John.
So
thank you.
thank you for joining us today. And my next guest will be Vanessa Bolts from Soul General House next week. And coming up next is Kodak Live, a fully integrated care. See you next week.